Alright, hi guys. We're going to do a video here focused on circumference. We're going to talk about what the circumference of a circle is. And the way I'm going to kind of show you how to do this is we're going to kind of start with the basics here. So what circumference is it the distance around the circle. So if you were to measure all the way around the circle, it's the distance around. So we should write that down as a definition for our notes. So circumference is the distance around a circle. Distance around the circle. And the weird thing here is that if we're measuring the distance around something, it's really easy on like a straight edge shape. Like if I had a rectangle, finding the distance around that rectangle, like if I wanted to fence off a yard in the shape of a rectangle, it really comes down to being able to measure it with like a ruler. Like, okay, how long is this side? How long is this side? How long is this side? And then you just kind of add all those sides up. But with a circle, you're not really going to be able to take a ruler and work your way around a circle. That would be kind of strange. So we have some kind of other strategies. And one of those other strategies is we can use string. Like you could take a piece of string and line it up. You'd have to be really accurate, but go around the circle, line it up, kind of measure it with the string first. This isn't super accurate. I'd probably get really, the more accurate you want to be, the closer you'd want to be to the line. But then you could take that piece of string and basically pinch it, pull it, and measure how long is the string. You could take it and say, okay, well, the circumference of the circle is about that long. Now I can use my ruler, line it up, and measure it. So that's what circumference is. Unfortunately, using a piece of string to measure every single circle wouldn't be really like a useful way to do it every single time, especially if the circle was really, really big. If we're talking about like a field or something like that out in a, at a sportsplex, and we want to know how big is the field and circumference-wise, we're not going to go out there with a piece of string and measure it probably. So we have another strategy. We have a formula that makes things easier. And here's how the formula works. It's kind of interesting. So in the circle, if you were to draw a line right through the center of the circle, we have this thing called the diameter. And a lot of times we use the letter D for diameter, but I'm going to write it for our notes, diameter. And the diameter goes right through the center of the circle, and it's a straight line, and it is measurable with a ruler. I can use a ruler and measure a diameter. So that is one thing that's a little bit easier to measure on a circle. Well, it turns out that the circumference of a circle, and I'm going to use capital letter C for circumference, is always equal to the diameter times this weird number, pi. And pi is this really strange number that was discovered a long time ago. It's a decimal. 3.14 is how we mostly remember it, but it's actually not 3.14. It's this ongoing decimal that never ends. And this 3.14 number, for some reason, there's this weird relationship that when you multiply it by the diameter, you always get the circumference of a circle. It's really, really strange, but true. So you can go around with a piece of string to any circle, any perfect circle, and measure it, and the diameter times pi will always be the same as that string measurement every single time if it's a perfect circle. So it's really kind of an interesting thing. In the math world, we find it really fascinating, this weird number pi. So easiest way to do these problems is to kind of memorize this formula. And either you're going to remember it as diameter times pi, or a lot of times in a math textbook, you're going to see it another way. You're going to see it in terms of what we call the radius. The radius is when you take the center of the circle and you measure across only on half of it. So that would be the radius. Again, the radius is something you can easily measure with a ruler. It's a straight line, and it goes right from the center. And so sometimes we say the circumference is equal to 2r times pi, or sometimes we say 2 pi r. That's the other formula we use. And that's because it takes two radiuses. Think about it, if I added a radius to the side, it takes two radiuses to make a diameter. So you can memorize either of these formulas. Circumference is 2 pi r, or circumference is diameter times pi. It actually doesn't really matter. Either formula is going to work. And so to give you an example, let's try a problem down here. So we'll say example. Let's imagine we have a circle, and it looks like this. And someone comes and tells you that the diameter of the circle measures across a distance of 3 feet. 3 feet. What you're going to do is you're going to write down the formula. The second you want to know circumference, you're either going to write diameter times pi or 2 pi r, one of the two. So I'm going to write, oops, I didn't mean to write it like this, diameter times pi. There we go. So I'm going to start with the formula. Write that down first. Then I'm going to substitute the values in. I know what diameter is. That was the given piece of information. The diameter is 3 feet. So circumference is equal to 3 feet times pi. So if I didn't have a calculator, I would probably be stuck with an answer of 3 pi. Like, that's all I could really do without my calculator. If I do have a calculator, I can actually multiply this out. And I'm just going to real quickly use my phone here. I'm going to do 3 times 3.14. And that is 9.42. But again, I'm going to remind you, I'm already rounding this problem. Pi is not really 3.14. It's really like 3.1415, blah, 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 blah. It's this never-ending long decimal. So because I just rounded the pi and I got my answers, in this 9.42, what I'm going to do to show that I'm rounding is I'm going to make the equal sign squiggly, like kind of wiggly. So it looks like, oh, it's about equal to 9.42. And then we need to give it units. We know it's measured in feet, but a lot of people have to question, is it feet? Is it feet squared? Is it feet to the third power? Like, what do I write for the units? And I want to remind you that we're measuring the string around the circle. If I take a piece of string and wrap it around and pull it tight, it is 3 feet long. So that's not units squared or units cubed. I'm not talking about area or volume here. That's just purely feet. 9.42 feet around the circle. And that makes up my answer. So I'm going to give you another example here, just to kind of continue working on this and get some more paper. My next example, I'm going to give you a circle where you have the radius. So let's say this is my circle, and I tell you that the radius to the center measures a distance of, we're going to say 7 centimeters. 7 centimeters. And I want to know the circumference. What's the circumference? That's the question. So I'm going to write down the formula. Circumference equals, I can write diameter times pi, or I can write 2 pi r. Either formula works. And I'm going to substitute in what I know. So I know r this time. I know my radius is 7 centimeters, because that was the given information. So now I know it's 2 pi times 7 centimeters. Well, 2 times 7 is 14. So this is 14 pi. And again, if I didn't have a calculator, I would probably stop right here as my answer. But I do have a calculator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 14 times 3.14. 3.14 is rounded. So I'm going to use the wiggly equal sign here, the squiggly one that says it's about equal to 43.96. So if I pulled this string that went all the way around the circle tight, it would be 43.96 centimeters. And that makes my answer, circumference of a circle. So one of the things that's going to be kind of important in class is the organization of your work. Notice how I'm going formula, numbers, doing a little calculation, answer. It's kind of like a 3-step process with maybe a little work in the middle here, but you want to always show the formula, show substituting in the numbers, and show your clear answer with units. Notice on the last problem that we just did, I did the same thing. I did formula, numbers, answer. So it's really, really key that you kind of have those 3 steps. That's kind of a big idea. And do not forget your units. It's going to be feet or inches or centimeters. You have to pay attention to what are the units in this problem. All right, so that's kind of an introduction to circumference. I'm going to post more videos about how to reverse some of this process, so look for other videos. Thanks, guys.